We will make America strong again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Kansas. Thank you.
President Donald Trump rallies Republicans in a speech pushing party policies and touting success of his administration. Good evening. I'm Melissa Bruner.
And I'm Ralph Hipp. A capacity crowd inside the Expo Center's Landon Arena welcomed the 45th President of the United States with lots of roaring applause.
Topping President Trump's comments, the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Senate vote came just after the president departed Washington for Kansas this afternoon. He signed the formal documents for the appointment while in the air, and Kavanaugh was sworn in during a private ceremony around the same time Air Force One touched down. It all set the stage for the president's remarks, which is where 13's Sean Wheat begins our team coverage tonight.
Well, Melissa and Ralph, that's exactly what happened. He didn't waste any time. The president actually made sure the first thing he talked about when he took the stage was the confirmation of the Supreme Court justice. And at one point, his staff even encouraged him to cancel the rally.
Could you call the people of Kansas and tell them we won't be able to make it tonight? I said, I don't have the courage to do that.
President Donald Trump didn't want to cancel his trip to Kansas, but said he wanted to share his win with everyone. The confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh.
And I want to thank our incredible Republican senators for refusing to back down.
The president came to Kansas to back Chris Kobach. He joked he wanted Kobach to lose so he could hire him.
He's tough, he's strong, and I hated that he ran because I would have loved to have brought him into my administration. In fact, if he loses, I'll bring him into my administration in 2 seconds. I hope he loses because I want him so badly, but don't do that.
The president then turned over the podium to Kobach, who touted their work together.
We've worked on a number of things, but the most important is stopping illegal immigration.
The president also made his voice heard on the 2nd Congressional District race.
Get out and vote. I need him in Washington. Steve Watkins.
Watkins applauded the president's work in Washington, but told him he could do better.
But just think of how much more he could have accomplished if he were a Kansan.
The president also pushed his work on unemployment numbers, the New Mexico and Canada trade deal, and a possible economic agreement with China. In the end, he said everyone has to vote.
It's up to you to decide your fate.
At one point, the president did also recognize Governor Jeff Collier and even said after his term as governor, he may offer him a job in the White House. He also recognized, mentioned Representative Ron Estes and Roger Marshall, but no mention of Kevin Yoder.
Kevin Yoder, the congressman for the Kansas City area, had another engagement tonight and did not attend. Sean, thanks. Kicking off tonight's rally was President Trump's campaign manager, Brad Parscale. It was a homecoming of sorts. Parscale grew up in Topeka, graduating from Shawnee Heights High School.
Everything I feel like I've done with this president, everything I've done to try to work to help him be president, to help to save this country, is the values I learned here in Kansas. It's what's been born in me and raised in me and the people that I was around.
Parscale got his start with the campaign as digital director for the 2016 contest. The Expo Center was filled with President Trump's supporters holding signs and cheering USA and Build the Wall. 13's Tiernan Shank spoke with several of them after the remarks about what stood out most to them. Tiernan?
11,000 people filled this room to see President Trump, and we talked to some of them as they were leaving, who told us the event felt like one big family coming together.
The drive that he had behind it, like, you could tell that he believed what he was saying.
For Samantha Ralston and her dad Sam, President Donald Trump's visit was more than inspiring, it was bonding.
I have always tried to instill in my kids the importance of participating in the political process, to get out and vote.
Samantha says she's just getting involved in politics and found the president's energy infectious.
It was really energizing, it was really motivating, and I can't wait to go out and vote.
Greg Pfister drove from Overland Park to wait in the rain on what he calls an historic day.
The best thing he said was about Judge Kavanaugh. An historic day, so thought it was a good time to come and see the president.
So historic, the president almost canceled.
Could you call the people of Kansas and tell them we won't be able to make it tonight? I said, I don't have the courage to do that.
Sam is happy he didn't.
So many times the Midwest is almost forgotten when it comes to politics nationally.
He knows sharing the rally with his daughter could only happen once in a lifetime.
To get to witness the president coming to town, regardless of who it is, the president is here in Topeka, Kansas, and that is a huge deal for our state.
Those midterm elections are coming up in just a few weeks, and we'll be watching to see if President Trump's trip made a difference. Reporting from the Kansas Expo Center, Tiernan Shank, 13 News.
Tiernan, thank you. The election, November 6th, a few Tuesdays away. Not everybody was happy to see President Trump in Topeka tonight. His visit drew a crowd of protesters outside the Expo Center. Juan Cisneros with that part of the story. He's outside the Expo Center with what happened, what he saw.
A crowd started gathering around 4 o'clock today along the designated areas of Topeka Boulevard, expressing their opinions about the president, gubernatorial candidate Chris Kobach, and Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the Supreme Court. People took to the streets to protest the president as he took the stage at Landon Arena.
Both Donald Trump and Chris Kobach have been promoting a divisive politics that want to divide people here in Kansas for their own political gain.
A few protesters took the step of getting tickets, then leaving once President Trump got on the stage to speak.
One of the most important things I've done to have my resistance being seen and witnessed.
Yeah, as long as it was seen and witnessed, and I mean, it was, obviously people were booing and stuff, and that just goes to show that, like, we got to say our opinion, but we didn't really say it, you know, we got to show our opinion.
Officers kept a watchful eye for any violence. We did see one fight break out, which led to one arrest. Campbell says she is confident the protest will make a difference in future elections.
I think that it's really great, and I think that a lot of the people out here are a lot of kids my age, like from like 15 to 20 age group, and I think that it's really great because we're going to be the ones that are going to be coming into the polls in the coming years, so we'll be able to make changes finally.
Now, besides that one incident, officers did tell me that the scene did remain fairly calm, and now I did see some bickering between the two parties as supporters did leave the arena and headed towards the exit. At the Kansas Expo Center, Juan Cisneros, 13 News.
With the scene outside at the Expo Center, Juan, thank you very much for that report.
President Donald Trump touched down in Topeka at Forbes Field, and a special group was there to greet Air Force One. 13's Reagan Porter was there too.
In the midst of a cool day, President Donald Trump received a warm welcome here at the 190th Air Refueling Wing. President Trump made his way down the stairs of Air Force One, where Governor Jeff Collier, Adjutant General Lee Taffanelli, and gubernatorial hopeful Chris Kobach were waiting.
It's like game day, and it's amazing. So many people from Topeka, all over Kansas, coming into town to see the president.
This wasn't Kobach's first time meeting President Trump. However, it was a first for the Tyndall family from Manhattan, Kansas.
It's exciting their whole family can be up here, and they've never, been around the president. We're not near D.C., so just exciting.
It's really cool and awesome opportunity.
Did you ever think that you'd get this opportunity?
No.
Some children were hoisted on their parents' shoulders to witness President Trump's historic visit to Topeka. They were among more than 300 people invited for the arrival, including family and friends of White House and Secret Service personnel, as well as service members and their families.
It's just rare for that to happen. We're kind of situated in the heartland, and we just don't get to see that every day.
Beckman and Captain Matt Lucht say it's an experience like no other, meeting your commander-in-chief.
We put the uniform on to serve not only for the citizens of the United States, but Kansas, because we are guardsmen. And having the commander-in-chief come here, it's just a really cool experience for everybody.
Reagan Porter, 13 News.
Governor Jeff Collier and Chris Kobach rode with President Trump's motorcade to the Kansas Expo Center. People were lining streets along the way to catch a glimpse of that motorcade going through the streets. 13's Erica Hall shows us the excitement along the route.
It was an exciting Saturday for those hoping to catch a glimpse of President Donald Trump.
He's in Topeka where I can see him.
About 50 people, mostly families, stood outside the Forbes Field's gates to greet the president as he headed for the Kansas Expo Center.
Mr. President, America loves you!
The president doesn't come to Topeka very often, but
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that my kids are 8 and 5, so this is something they'll probably remember for a long time.
Unfortunately, hundreds of people who lined further down Topeka Boulevard missed out since his motorcade took a turn down Burlingame Road. But folks who did secure a good seat, like Andy Kessler from Kansas City, were thrilled to be in the presence of the president.
Had the helicopter circling perimeter, all the motorcycle brigades getting by, another came by, and then the final finale. Donald Trump waved at us. It was great.
Braving the rain and the cold was worth it, they said, for the once-in-a-lifetime experience.
I love President Trump. All my family does, so it's just good to be out here and support him.
In Topeka, Erica Hall, 13 News.
The last president to visit Topeka was President George W. Bush in 2006, although Barack Obama did land at Forbes Field on his way for his 2015 visit to KU.
Greeting that motorcade at the Expo Center, an overflow crowd as well, and 13's team coverage of this special day, historic day for Topeka, continues with our Grant Stevens. Well, Grant, talk about some of those people. They were left outside in the cold in all this.
Getting everyone inside today was actually a pretty smooth process, but still, thousands of people didn't quite make it in. That's because the Expo Center could only hold about half the number of people that showed up. Even so, people were very excited to head inside as soon as those doors opened at about 2 p.m.
When the doors opened up, people couldn't contain their excitement.
Very slowly and gently, let's walk up.
The wait was finally over. Many people have been camped out here in the rain, wind, and cold since yesterday morning.
Oh, it was so cold. No, we were all just huddled up together underneath that awning, and the rain and the wind was blowing completely sideways. It probably wasn't as cold as it felt, but it felt really cold.
Despite the weather, they say it's all worth it.
Oh, yeah. It's been so worth it now. It's just all the people and the excitement. You get a bunch of Trump deplorables together, and we all just have a good time.
Some people towards the back of the line just barely missed the cut.
Even if we don't get in, it's totally worth it. Me and my buddy were the last people turned away. What's going through my mind was literally like someone has to be that person. And I had this like bad juju thing going on, like, man, it might be us. And it was literally the last person. But I was glad that people came out and showed support.
Though they might not have been able to walk inside and see President Trump for themselves, settling for the big screen outside was second best.
Though some people left as soon as they were turned away at the doors, many people decided to stick it out, staying outside, braving the elements, and watching Trump's entire speech outdoors. Live from the Kansas Expo Center, Grant Stevens, 13 News.
Thank you, sir, for that outside as well. As the president's visit was bringing attention to the Republican candidates, Chris Kobach in the governor's race and Steve Watkins in the congressional contest, Kansas Democrats were rallying the troops for a day of action across the state. For that part of the story, 13's Cecilia Jenkins met with a few of them.
As President Donald Trump made his way to the capital city Saturday, several Democratic candidates channeled their energy into action.
Hi, John. This is Paul Davis. I am running for Congress here.
Second congressional Democratic candidate Paul Davis joined volunteers to reach out to voters.
Listening to what people have to say about what their concerns are.
Big magnitude of volunteers going out and knocking on doors, talking directly to voters, meeting them in their neighborhoods to talk about health care and education.
Democratic gubernatorial candidate Laura Kelly joined the action as well, warning voters about her opponent, Republican Chris Kobach, who spoke at Saturday's rally.
We can choose to stay on the road to recovery, which we've finally gotten on, and fix the problems facing our state of Kansas, or we can vote for Chris Kobach and take a quick U-turn and go off the cliff again and be even more devastated when the day is done.
Also in the governor's race, independent Greg Orman. He said farmers and ranchers in western Kansas depend on immigrant labor, which make Kobach and President Trump's policies harmful to the Kansas economy.
I'd love nothing more than for President Trump, when he's here, to go out there and meet with those folks in the feed yards and the farms of Kansas, to just realize and look them in the eye and understand how damaging those policies would be to to our state.
Davis, who has been endorsed by 36 Republican leaders, says if elected, he has no problem working across party lines.
You know, I've said all along that if I'm elected to this position, you know, I will support President Trump when I think he's doing things that are good for Kansas and good for America, and I'm also going to call him out when I think he's doing things that are going to be harmful.
Laura Kelly also with a statement after the rally tonight saying, quote, "We saw tonight that we can't trust Chris Kobach to bring people together who have different points of view." She also said that Kobach was focusing too much on what's happening in Washington and not enough on what's happening in Kansas. You can read her full statement at WIBW.com. All kinds of opinions out there, all kinds of views expressed on this day when the president visits the capital city of Kansas.
We want to take a look outside to the weather. We were expecting rain. There was some that those who stood in line had to deal with this morning, Peyton. But what about the rest of the evening?
Well, Melissa, Ralph, more rain is on the way. We have seen some of the showers taper off this evening as you look at Capitol Federal Live Storm Tracker. Some of the heavier showers in our area right now from around Seneca out towards Hiawatha, but more rain. It'll be locally heavy at times on the way tonight, and it's likely a wet Sunday across the area. An updated look at Supercast and how much rain we can expect. That's coming up in just a few minutes.
It is, and a little bit later, the Kansas Supreme Court has a decision on a Topeka murder suspect's appeal, and 2 people found dead in Sedgwick County today. The latest on that information is coming up.
Later on the Saturday 13 News, sports. Our Sunflower State football squad's in action, of course, this Saturday. Who scored some big wins coming up?
This is your 13 weather forecast with Peyton Sanders.
Welcome back on this Saturday night. It was a wet start to the weekend here in Northeast Kansas. A lot of the heavier rains that we had occurred early this morning, and here's how it stacked up for the area. These are the reports out at the regional airports, so keep in mind the exact amount of rain that fell in your backyard may vary, but Topeka leading the total rainfall amount since Friday. Out at Billard, 2.35 inches of rain. Yeah, pretty nice moisture here across the area. 1.5 inches even for both Manhattan and Lawrence, and more rain to come as we move on through the next several days. Capitol Federal Live Storm Tracker this evening. A lot of the more steady rains pushing out into Missouri right now. We're just left with some areas of drizzle, patchy fog, a few light rain showers, but more rain will be heading our way late overnight tonight. Through the next few hours, the best chance of rain probably going to be southeast of the Kansas Turnpike. Some of it going to be locally heavy at times. You might be woken up to some thunder if you live in places like Osage City and Burlington. But once we get into tomorrow morning, that's going to begin to see more widespread rain pushing in from the south. You can see by 5 a.m. scattered showers, a few rumbles of thunder along I-70. And it's likely going to be a wet day tomorrow with off and on showers and a few thunderstorms continuing throughout the day. And a chilly day as well. Look at temperatures tomorrow morning. Upper 40s to lower 50s. So have the jacket handy, the rain gear. We could catch some periods of dry weather, but in general, off and on showers will be continuing throughout the day. And there's a very small chance tomorrow afternoon and evening. If you live near and southeast of the Turnpike, there could be an isolated severe weather risk. Isolated hail, brief gusty winds would be possible, but it won't be anything that's going to be all that widespread. Heading into tomorrow evening, we could dry out for a time for places east. Meanwhile, more heavy rain building back out to the west, and that activity will be pushing to the east throughout Sunday night. So off and on throughout the day Sunday into the overnight hours, more rain is on the way. Now looking ahead to Monday on Supercast, I think there will be a trend that will begin to see a lot of the heavier rains shift out for those of you in the western and northern sections of our area. So on Monday, Topeka, places like Emporia and Ottawa could begin to dry out for a time. We're not done with the rain yet. We have 3 days of it all the way through Tuesday. Chances for showers and thunderstorms will continue. The center of the storm system is going to be pushing across eastern Kansas on Tuesday, and that'll be the final day of rain chances here in northeast Kansas. On Tuesday as well, an isolated risk for severe weather. Hail and wind will be possible, something that we'll be watching as we move on towards Tuesday. So how much more rain can we expect? This is on top of what has already fallen between now and Wednesday, an additional 4 to 6 inches of rain. Kind of looks more like snowfall totals, doesn't it? On the western sections of our area. Meanwhile, places farther east, 2 to 4 inches of rain will be possible. So plenty more rain to go around. That's going to increase the potential for flooding as we move on through the next few days. Low temperatures tonight, it's going to be chilly, near steady temperatures in the mid-40s to near 50 degrees. Your Sunday forecast a little bit warmer, but overall it's still a cool day. High temperatures could make it back into the upper 60s for a few spots, close to 70 around Ottawa. Off and on chances for showers and thunderstorms will continue. Our first dry day of the upcoming week will be on Wednesday, but the cool temperatures will stick around. A high temperature around 60 degrees on Wednesday. More rain could be moving in by Friday and the start of next weekend.
Yeah, we've seen the clouds with a little rain, so we're keeping those on there for 4 more days. Yes. The state Supreme Court decision after they said mistakes were made in the case of a murder suspect.
Also ahead, officials in Derby investigating the deaths of 2 people tonight. The latest is next.
You're watching 13 News, Kansas News leader.
Topeka police continue checking a shooting in South Topeka.
Officers were called around 11:30 p.m. to an apartment complex near Southwest 34th and Gage. When they arrived, they found a man with a gunshot wound. It was not believed to be life-threatening, but he was taken to the hospital for treatment. Officers also found several vehicles that were hit by gunfire. Police have not released any information about a suspect or suspects.
And 2 people have been killed in a double shooting in Derby this evening. Our sister station, KWCH 12 News in Wichita, reports that Sedgwick County dispatchers got the call at 5:20 this evening. The victims are a man and woman believed to be in their 30s, found dead in separate vehicles with gunshot wounds. Police don't believe that anyone else is involved. They're still investigating what led to that tragedy in Derby.
The Kansas Supreme Court upheld a man's conviction in the drive-by shooting of a woman who'd just been married. The court ruled Friday the Shawnee County District Attorney's Office did make 3 errors in the case against 34-year-old Ontario Dwayne Lowry, but they concluded Lowry still received a fair trial. Lowry was sentenced to consecutive life terms plus nearly 52 years for the death of 42-year-old Tiffany Davenport Ray of Wichita. Davenport Ray was fatally shot in the early morning hours of May 25, 2014. Another man also was convicted in the shooting. A 3rd suspect was killed 3 weeks after Davenport Ray's death. Alex Barnes' career day was not enough for K-State at Baylor. We'll take a look at also the interceptions KU's defense did for West Virginia coming up in sports.
Also a rout for Washburn and Emporia State and a thrilling end to their game. Don't go away.
This is 13 Sports.
Kansas State has gone to 8 straight bowl games, with arguably its toughest 3-game stretch coming up. Today's game at Baylor looked crucial for that streak's chances. And after it ended, I really can't blame you Wildcat fans if you are very worried. Skylar Thompson ended up starting this one at quarterback with Alex Delton being inactive, which is a little surprising. But Alex Barnes ran so well that a quarterback conversation just didn't matter today. His first touchdown goes for 55 yards. You notice I said first because he's got a lot more. His second touchdown of the day, right up the gut, up the seam, 34 yards. And yes, there is a 3rd touchdown of the long variety. This one for 48 yards. Great blocking by the K-State offensive line as well. Barnes ran for a career-high 250 yards. Coming into the game, he had 357 for the season. So yeah, he upped that total a little bit. But this one stayed tight at 27 in the 4th. Thompson drops back, and this is just a very poor decision for his second pick of the game. I mean, that's double coverage. You got to wonder a little bit what he was seeing there, and Baylor does not waste the chance. Craig Williams gets to the outside, makes one Wildcat miss, and cuts up for the touchdown to give the Bears the lead. K-State gave up 557 total yards to Baylor. Not great. Thompson redeems himself a bit, though. Back down he comes with a drive and a beautiful ball to Dalvin Warmack on the wheel route to make it a tie ball game. Thompson did have 3 total touchdowns today. That Wildcat defense could not hold, though. Connor Martin missed 3 field goals and an extra point, but he makes the one that matters for the lead and the win. Baylor hands K-State its 3rd straight loss, winning 37-34. As for KU, Jayhawks at 9th-ranked West Virginia. Something I want you to keep in mind for this. Coming into today, West Virginia quarterback Will Grier had no red zone interceptions in his Mountaineer career. He threw 3 against Kansas in the first half. Hassan Defense had 2 of those. This is the second one right there. And then DeFon Ferguson, this is second and goal, 21-7 Mountaineers going into the half. Ferguson comes up with another pick. I mean, you got to remember, Grier is like a Heisman front runner, so this is just pretty shocking to see. Great performance from the Jayhawk defense. Second half, KU down 14. Khalil Herbert looking like Alex Barnes, right? Busting loose for a 31-yard touchdown, and KU is down to the 9th-ranked team in the country on the road by just a touchdown. The final seconds of the third quarter, no interception this time. Greer out to Martell Pettaway, who weases his way in for the touchdown to make it 28-14. Greer had 4 touchdowns. KU hangs around, but West Virginia wins 38-22. And the MIAA, Emporia State hosting 18th-ranked Fort Hays State today. Hornets forcing a couple of turnovers in the first half. Tigers down inside the 5, but that ball was loose. Emporia is on it, and then later in the half, they stay opportunistic. Another loose ball, kind of a pile up here, but the big man comes out with the ball for the Hornets. Now, they were down 17-7 going into the fourth. Now it's 24-21, 51 seconds left. Braxton Marshall to Jordan Reed. Look at this effort, man. He stretches for what would be the game-winning touchdown. Hornets score 21 fourth-quarter points to win 28-24. Elsewhere in the conference, Washburn hosting winless Northeastern State. She is just adorable. Look at her. Washburn up 7-0 here. Hunter Browning completely reverses field, and the former junior blue coming right at you for Washburn's second score. Ichabod's ran for 352 yards. Not bad. Not a bad day for Mitch Sherg through the air either. He threw 3 touchdowns. This one is to Will Hamilton to make it 21-0. Ichabod's cruising this one, winning 58-14. But Ralph and Melissa, I got to tell you, I am so pumped to be at Arrowhead tomorrow. Chiefs, Jaguars, right here on WIBW. Promises to be a great game.
Will he feel as pumped once he sees the forecast?
Rain gear. Yeah.
Rain for the
Trash
Chiefs.
bag
It's
for the
almost been
camera.
guaranteed. Yeah.
Yeah, have it ready. The jacket, too. It's going to be a cool day out in Kansas City. Highs in the mid-60s there. Cooler north, warmer south, off and on rain showers, a few thunderstorms. We'll hope we won't have any delays, but there is a potential for some thunderstorms out in Kansas City tomorrow. Warmer Monday, highs back close to 80 degrees. Rain chances last all the way through Tuesday night. Our first dry day will be on Wednesday of the upcoming week.
Kansas City Chiefs with a shot at going 5-0 tomorrow. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the game is at noon Sunday right here on Channel 13.
5-0.
It sounds impressive. It is impressive. Patrick Mahomes is impressive, and we'll see him in action again tomorrow.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us tonight, too. We appreciate it.
Get the latest news, weather, and sports at WIBW.com or follow WIBW on Twitter, Facebook, and our mobile app. Thank you for making 13 News the most watched evening newscast.